Hezké dobré odpoledne, Metronome. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In order to facilitate this debate, let me introduce the panel and our dear guest in English, because obviously we have to use a language that will allow us to communicate smoothly, and our guest is not Czech, so for this we will therefore use the English language. Good afternoon one more time, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to introduce the NGO called Novinářský inkubátor, journalism incubator, a local Czech NGO dealing with a career push for the emerging leaders in journalism. And in our NGO, we focus at profound, renowned experts in media and journalism who can serve as leading examples in the field. Which is why we have decided to invite to Prague a dear guest, a Finnish expert on disinformation, investigative journalist, and an author of the book called Putin's Trolls, Jessikka Aro. Jessikka, I'm so happy to have you here in Prague. Welcome to the Metronome Festival. It is my pleasure to run this little panel with you. And I would like to start with my own presentation, because I still have not said my name, which is not so important, but just for the record, my name is Tomáš Bouška. I'm chairing the Journalism Incubator. I'll be the panel moderator. So good afternoon one more time, everybody. Jessikka, welcome once again, and we would start as discussed with your own presentation that you have prepared about your work, also about the book. And after that, we will open the discussion and also turn to our participants for posing questions and running the debate. Good afternoon, Jessikka. Yours is the floor, please, and the presentation can start.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me here. It's such an honor, and also I want to thank you for the work that you are doing, supporting journalists to continue their profession, which is amongst the most dangerous professions in the world. They need all the support you're giving. And also thank you for joining today. I'm really looking forward to this interesting concept and panel. And as Tomáš said, I will start with presenting about my own findings about Russian information warfare. And I will also look into the current Russian information operations we are witnessing across the globe. So let me begin with just a little bit of a history lesson here. So Russia, former Soviet Union, didn't start yesterday. They have been practicing for decades. And unfortunately, they have been doing it by the security services. And I found really interesting a quote and piece of information from the literature. As far as 1958, the Soviet defectors told that already back then the KGB was looking to harm and damage the West as an option to a full-fledged war. And this is how they came up with fake information campaigns. And I also have to mention that the first and foremost people who have fallen victims of the Kremlin's and Putin's information warfare are the Russian people and Russian citizens. And we can continue to the next slide, please. We will look into some of the most prominent and senior Russian officials' own statements about the topic, because here we will see how even proud they are to present their information psychological warfare. For example, here Sergei Shoigu, who is even now the defense minister of the Russian Federation, he has claimed that information is a weapon and mass media is a weapon. So this is how the Russians view concepts like mass media and information. Also, they have updated their military doctrine back in 2014 when they started their so-called secret warfare against Ukraine. And in that doctrine, information space was updated to play a really heavy role. So they are kind of like visionaries, you could say, and much more ahead of their Western counterparts, viewing information space as a useful area or forum to conduct warfare. And we can continue to the next slide, please. Here, a very interesting guy, Andrei Illarionov, who I have been interviewing back in 2014 when I was working with the Finnish broadcasting company. And Andrei Illarionov also knows what he's talking about because he is former close AD of Vladimir Putin, and he has been planning different operations with them and thus capable of explaining the phenomenon. So I asked Mr. Illarionov, who, by the way, already left Moscow back in 2005 to live in the United States as a researcher, and stated that Russia was no longer a democracy. So I asked Mr. Illarionov that why does Russia conduct information warfare? And it was very interesting what he revealed, very sinister too. He said that they have political aims that they want to accomplish back then, for example, to justify their war against Ukraine, but also they conduct it because they want to show their might. They want to act like village bandits. They want to terrorize others. So there are, of course, specific political goals, but then there is just the fun of it. Next slide, please. Here, very interesting channel, prominent channel of Russian information warfare, originally known as Russia Today. Now we know it by the name RT. It's a media basically run by the Kremlin and a media run by Putin and his cronies. And here we see the so-called chief editor, Margarita Simonian. And you have to give her credit because already back in 2012 she told it publicly that this channel, which by the way has operated in tens of different languages at one point and still is active, super active and very successful in some language areas, that they are an institution equal to, for example, Defense Ministry, and are capable of conducting information warfare on behalf of the Russian Federation. So you can find RT from social media, where they have been building communities and audiences much before the Western traditional media even realized we have to build communities and that it would be wise to be present on Facebook and on different social media platforms. So RT has been actively kind of like taking control of those platforms. We can continue, thank you. And here, super interesting detailed techniques, what I found as detailed by prestigious, distinguished Russian author and a publisher called Vladimir Yakovlev. He, some years ago, wrote a really famous blog post in which he described how he and other students of the journalistic faculty of Moscow State University, the crown jewel of the Russian education system, by the way, had been taught these techniques in an atmosphere that he called to be like secrecy, and they were taught by Russian officers different methods on basically how to manipulate audiences' feelings, and through that manipulation of feelings and emotions, influence in their thinking and attitudes and even behavior. And this is what I always find most interesting in my own investigations. I have been trying to look how well or bad also the Russians have been able to influence in real people, also across borders. We can continue. So, and by the way, those techniques I believe are originally designed to target military personnel or political leaders of enemy countries, but the biggest issue that I have with all of this information warfare and information aggression is that it is targeted at us at citizens who don't have really any training to protect ourselves or any training to even recognize such operations. So this is what really also drives my interest, to look into the operations and detail them and help people to build resilience against them. So here is my original article about Russian trolls. Back in 2014, I was kind of like following in the footsteps of Russian super brave independent journalists, of who some of them still exist and do their work really well. So these brave journalists had uncovered an office that was spreading Putin's propaganda behind fake and anonymous profiles and blog posts. So they were pretending to be real citizens when in fact they were being paid a salary. They were producing these commentaries in a place that they had themselves named as a troll factory, and they had themselves named trolls. So there was a political operation ongoing. So I decided I want to look into this. How is it working, and is it really also influencing real people? Also Finnish people. You know, we have also Russian speakers in Finland. Not so much, but it's still a community. And who knew? Maybe the trolls were active in Finnish language as well. We had some worrying examples. For example, in the Finnish Twitter, we had trolls that pretended to be something else than what they really were. So I put out this article. We can go to the next slide, please. And then immediately I was made the target. And this was September 2014, and I'm still actually the target. But these were the first fake news stories that were being spread about myself. And here you can also actually witness how this propaganda and special combat propaganda techniques actually work in a really micro scale. But still, these Russian articles claim that they mention me and my workplace, and they say that this Jessikka Aro journalist with the Finnish broadcasting company is a famous cooperator of NATO and American Baltic Special Services. So they were framing me as the foreign agent and a cooperator and some kind of just secret agent who is also working for Estonian security police and compiling an illegal database of Putin's supporters in Finland, when I was just not doing any of that, but I was being framed to do all of that. And also, unfortunately, my phone number and my email address were published, so alongside with these conspiracy theories. And you can really see, because I started to then drown into contacts in which people were just angry at me, they were calling me names, they were wishing for my death and my going to the jail. And I even received a phone call where there was on the sound of a shooting gun. And I realized that this is how the manipulation really works. These people who were attacking me, they believed all of that was true. So they felt that they were doing the right thing attacking me. And we can really see this same phenomenon play out in so many different social media agitated, for example, protests, physical protests in the streets. People are being manipulated to think, for example, that they are doing the right thing, they are protecting freedom or liberties or democracy when they are actually attacking, let's say, Capitol Hill in the United States. The next slide, please. And by the way, that guy, he is very interesting because he represents and has himself told to represent Moscow-based think tank that is actually the PR wing of Russian intelligence services. And this guy's colleagues or maybe supervisors are Russian intelligence officers who are appointed by Putin himself. Do we
Question? We can do questions right ahead. Is it okay?
Yeah.
So I'll pass the mic. We've got a pigeon in the air, so why don't we do questions?
Děkuju. Hi. I just have a question. You said that you were a target of those attacks by phone, by email. how long does it take this situation, and how did you manage to get out?
Thanks. I will go into more detail, but it has now lasted for 8.5 years, if I count correctly. But now it has been made very vivid in the Finnish pro-Kremlin fake news sites. So now it's Finnish people who are attacking me. But I will give you more details. So here just one example of propaganda techniques. This is demonizing. And I could see similar material. It says Finnish fascism, yeah, and the Finnish country symbols are being smeared with this disgusting filth. And similar material had been spread about Ukraine. Already back then, 2014, Russia had been portraying Ukraine as fascist and Nazi country. So this is very ancient propaganda technique. And we can go to the next one, please. Here, a group on Facebook that was also founded in the coming days from my original article. And in this group, there were anonymous trolls and propagandists with their own faces and names, just putting out Russian state media propaganda pieces and attacking me and researchers and other journalists who were covering Russia. And this group names, funnily, Russian troll army. It's Venäjän trolliarmeija in Finnish. And the problem is not just this group, but I found later in my investigation that similar groups exist in different countries as well, and in different language groups. And they are used as these kind of hubs of crowd stalking and even criminal activity. Here it's a normal deal to, for example, fantasize about my death or other journalists' deaths. And when you then try to ask Facebook to put down these groups, they don't. According to Facebook, this group, for example, doesn't break the community standards. And we can go to the next one. Then we also went to the infamous troll factory back in 2015, February, with my colleague and with our Russian stringer. And it was a very interesting trip. We found, for example, just regular job recruitment ads from Russian websites where they were looking for example, social media managers and copywriters and graphic designers to work in this company, internet research agency company, to work in 12-hour shifts, also during night time, and to produce material online. And we called there and we pretended that we want a job there. And we asked, what kind of material do you want me to produce if I come and work there? And they told political news. So already back in 2015, there was an English, because they were looking for people who knew English language, there was an international campaign already back then. And we can also go further, please. And of course, we were being smeared and attacked when we got home too. Another interesting example, Facebook event was being used. This feature where you can organize different kinds of events. You can also organize Finnish broadcasting company protests, for example. So anonymous people, anonymous trolls or harassers organized a protest against my workplace. And there you can see that some people, it kind of looks ridiculous. Only so few came, but still they came and they were led to believe that me and my colleague had been committing crimes and harassment against the Russian news agency. So they were just turning everything upside down and they were claiming that we were the propaganda spreaders. And these agitators managed to get people on the streets. And this was, I have to memorize you that this was 2015 Finland. 2 years after this, we started to learn that the Russian troll factory had used Facebook event feature to actually organize protests on US soil in order to promote Donald Trump as the next president of United States. And the troll factory had even managed to organize protests that were attacking each other. So Russian trolls had infiltrated in the cyberspace US communities and had US people attacking each other. So this is just to kind of like my one take today to you is that cyberspace is being used to organize people into hatred and actions in real space, in the streets. So we can continue. Here also harassment continued. Someone pretended to be my father, who at that time had been dead for 20 years. Someone had dug out my father's, who was a private individual, his private name and death data, and used it to attack me. And here I realized that, okay, so there won't be any bottom to this harassment and activity against myself. And we can go further, and police didn't find out who was it. Here, to sum up, I had still continued to do my original crowdsourcing investigation in which I was looking for troll methods and the impact in real people. And what I found out that the Russian trolls had already impacted real people and their behavior, because many people who I interviewed, they told me that they had, for example, stopped commenting Russia-related topics online because after they had sometimes done it, they had become targeted by Russian trolls. And, you know, they were also our former defense minister and high-profile cyber professor who had been attacked. But these people who I interviewed, they were just regular people, just just everyday Joes and Janes, so they were also attacked, smeared, called names, death threats, stuff like that. So also people told me that they had lost what is true and what is not true concerning Russia's secret warfare against Ukraine, because they just had lost their faith in the media and or they had been following the troll nonsense online. Also, some people were turned into propagandists. So some real people, after they are being exposed to material like this, they also want to start sharing it to others. So that's also one of the most worrying and sad outcomes of these operations. We can continue to the next slide, please. Here, I also mapped some of the Russian troll messages that they were spreading at that time using memes and videos on YouTube and Twitter bots and just Twitter messages. And by the way, the Russian embassy in Finland was super active in this back then already. Russian embassy in Finland, their Twitter and Facebook account, they were just like troll hubs. And they were putting out material almost like this, and even worse, they were putting out pictures of dead people and claiming that it was Ukraine's fault that these people had been died. Also, Russian embassy and Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs already back in 2014-15, for example, captured Finnish activists' hashtag on Twitter and started using it against Ukraine. It was called Peace Please, in Finnish Rauhaa kiitos, and the Finnish activists used it to ask for peace from the Russian embassy in social media. Well, Russian embassy started using it to ask for peace from Ukraine, because one of the main themes that the Russians were spreading them and what they are spreading now was that the Ukrainians were attacking themselves. So you can see that these kind of messages being spread in the international, not just in the Finnish, not just in the Russian, but international information space, means that there are audiences and Russia has the interest to build and cultivate these audiences. And this really, who think that it was the European Union or NATO who started the war against Ukraine, for example, and this reminds me of the works of Russian and Soviet Union security services who cultivate their target people and individuals for decades. We can continue, please. Here, some more, you asked about the harassment. So much of it continued in Finnish fake news like pro-Kremlin filth site, which miraculously appeared online in 2014 after the RT propaganda family Sputnik media in Finnish language had been abolished because it wasn't successful and no one read it. So amazingly, we have a paper called What the Fuck paper that doesn't have seemingly any connections to Russia. But you know what? It was, and it still is, translating RT stories into Finnish language. So this is how these operate in many, many European countries, in United States. These are these so-called proxy sites. Where they whitewash this material.
So Sputnik was already closed down in 2014 in Finland.
Yes, because no one read it. Seriously, no one.
Just happened last year in this country.
Oh. In here? Really interesting. All right. Well, we can continue. So What the Fuck paper started to stalk me too, with the same lines and some additional stories that the Russian fake media had been spreading about me. So these conspiracy theory and just like really juicy stories, you could say, they are your best example of what these Russian trolls and information warfare manipulators are also doing. They write such stories that you just want to consume more and more, because it doesn't matter if it's true, because it's so fucking interesting. It's just so interesting, and I need to have more of this. So we really have in Finland a population that believes all of this is true, and we can continue. And also they attack me because they feel that they are doing the right thing. And I have real people, even some of my old former friends have attacked me after reading this material. So it's really dangerous and effective, the material. Here are some really modern examples. Also, not all companies know that their ads are financing YouTube operations and Russian trolls on YouTube, because they just end up putting these ads in, well, YouTube channels that they don't know what the content really is. Now we have to rush a little bit, we can go further. And here just some more examples. Lithuanian diplomat, my friend, and really, you can really tell a veteran in the Russian information aggression and victim of it. Renatas Juška, Lithuanian, really visionary, good diplomat. The Russian security services started to go after him already 2008 and continued as long as they managed to get him out of his work. And his crime was that he was trying to help the Belarusian civil society. We can go further really quickly. Here also Bellingcat community, who I really recommend to follow. They have been investigating Russia's crimes and MH17 ever since 2014, and Russia has gone just crazy after them, trying to attack them in so many different levels. Even officially, we can continue really quickly. Also, example from Sweden. These are all case examples from my first book. I found out that it's a system. Russia attacks anyone who crosses their interests also internationally. Then we can soon, maybe we can leave it here. I just want to give you some present examples and some other examples researched by other people, just kind of like a list of political events where Russian trolls and Russian propaganda architects have tried to influence and have tried to attack. The latest, for example, the spreading COVID conspiracy theories, so much so that, for example, the German intelligence services have been forced to warn a German population against the Russian state media, and also they have been spreading horrible hatred and helping Sudanese dictator to take down the civic protests using social media and fake news. Russians have operations all over Africa, in Mali, in Libya, in Congo, and often they are, for example, promoting Wagner, showing that Wagner is a good option, for example, as an option to French security forces, and of course driving Britain away from European Union. Oh, there are so many different operations, and I feel that the problem is that we don't even know the majority of them, and we don't even know what kind of the impact is. But I will leave it here. Thank you so much, and really looking forward to the questions and comments.
Thank you so much, Jessikka, for being this fast. You've already mentioned it, that you wrote your first book. So this is bringing me actually to my one and only question, and we can open the discussion with you in the auditory. I am just wondering, where are you now? You know, you've done the book Putin's Trolls. It was, by the way, translated to the Czech language, as most of you probably know. It's available at our stand over there in the corner. But do you consider this task completed, or are you staying in the field? What are you up to now?
Thanks so much. No, not at all, not completed. I continue still. I am working on my second book, which is about Putin's war against the world. And I am looking into different cases where the Kremlin has attacked, has assassinated, killed people, and has conducted cyber attacks, trying to influence in the political future of different countries. So that's what I'm really heavily looking into now with the journalistic methods, making a new book. And also I continue to travel around and helping people recognize these operations and also counter them. And I have to say that the need is just growing. So I am traveling a lot.
And thank you so much for that, especially that you traveled to Prague just today. I'm turning to you now, ladies and gentlemen. Is there any question, any notes, any commentary that you would like to make? Now is the time. We still have a few minutes. Yes, please. And if you could state your name, maybe.
Hello, my name is Magdalena Hola, and I would like to ask you if I have someone in my social circle who believes, like very strongly believes these Russian propaganda, what should I say them? Should I like ignore them, or should I say something like, no, Russia is bad, West is good to their, like, West is bad, Russia is good? Is it worth it to discuss it with them?
That's an excellent question, and thank you for thinking about others, and thank you for thinking about how to help these people who have basically become victims of information warfare. So that is a really tricky task. And already back then, 2014, when I was starting to investigate, I also spoke with some Russians who told me that unfortunately, due to the propaganda, their families had been split apart. So part of the family was believing Putin's and the propaganda machinery's lies, and the other part not so much. So that created arguments and even splits in the family. And we have seen that also within the Trump phenomenon, and now with the COVID theories being spread very widely. So I would really recommend, if possible, to meet face to face, to have this best possible position to communicate and to show compassion, and to start maybe with a friendly discussion, to look into where is it really coming from, the need for the person to spread these ideas, and how deeply rooted is it. But you have to go there carefully. And usually I've noticed if you try to have these discussions online, it's counterproductive. Yeah, but good luck, you're really doing what we all should be doing. And also, I would like to come back to you, who asked about these campaigns. These campaigns have really continued really heavily, and like I gave some examples, but that is just the tip of the iceberg. I've even had real people following me in the streets, trying to stream me, live stream me to their hate troll channels. I've been forced to go to court. 5 people have been convicted, but it has taken years, and so many others the police just doesn't have the resources to look into. But there have been crimes such as aggravated libel and stalking, and yeah, some of them have been forced to pay some compensation, but of course they have just destroyed many years of my life, so you cannot compensate that. But they still continue, by the way. They don't mind any of these convictions, even.
Thank you so much. There's the next question.
Terve. My name is Jiří. Thank you for this presentation. It was very interesting. I have a question for you. That troll farm you showed, I think it was the one which was financed by Prigozhin, which was financed by Wagner. And now they are like 350 kilometers from Moscow. So now they are driving up to the north on the highway in their column. So do you find it kind of ironic that the same guy who financed the troll farm trying to destroy the West is now trying to overtake the power in Russia? Do you find it as ironic?
Thanks so much, and also thank you for the insightful question. I would have to question, are you sure it's really happening? Because this, what we are now being shown that is happening, so internal chaos inside Russia and takeover coup d'etat attempt, that's the wet dream of all of us. That's what we would really want to happen. But I'm not sure, is it really happening or is it a diversion? Because I'm also looking into this. Russians seem to have this special intelligence service, like military intelligence, like a special combat forces who are only specialized in making diversions. So diverting attention to something more horrible, something more important. So I feel that we are facing a shitload of Russian diversion, and this could be one of them. And by the way, Prigozhin, just like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, he said, while he still seemed being in control of his mind, he told that they have conducted information operations against the West, and they continue to do so. And I feel that he used a really interesting word, how do you say, kirurgisesti? Like, I'm sorry, I don't have the word in English, but he meant that really detailed, really super detailed and well-made operations. I tend to believe that is true, but I'm not sure about this. Not sure.
Thank you. There's one more question.
Let's keep an eye on them. But also remember to look at somewhere else, because somewhere else is also happening.
Hi, my name is Sonia. I just would like to ask regarding your knowledge about the misinformation and lies people stick to. Out of the 100% of the people that stick to those, whatever they believe in, although it's not true, it's just propaganda, is it more that they just were brainwashed or have been brainwashed for such a long time, that's why they still believe it, or they're just afraid to admit, either to themselves or to the others, or because of the consequences that it might lead to, that it is false? What is your experience, if I may ask? Thank you.
I wish that would be researched, because that is an excellent research question, I feel, for psychologists. It's difficult to tell, but I believe, it's only my belief, that it's a combination of both. It's difficult to say, because there is also some other motivations. You know, some people also have the motivation to, some people are like, for example, narcissistic, and they want to project or manifest their narcissism by spreading Russian propaganda everywhere. They don't believe it at all, but they just want to annoy others. So I think that should be researched a lot.
Thank you so much. Another hand.
Hi, my name is Alois, and I would like to ask, we know how to proceed with, for example, if somebody who is close to us believes the Russian propaganda, and we need to approach them with compassion and patience and with curiosity. But what do you think is the best approach to tackle professional trolls online? The most ancient rule of the internet is to not feed the trolls, but is there actually anything I can actively do to counteract them? Something like, for example, the NAFO group on Twitter? Thank you.
Excellent question.
Jessica, if you don't mind, I think there is a similar question that would just accompany the first one.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Hanna. As far as I know, in Finland you have a very good educational system. But even though people still believe of this, my question is what we can do as in educational and also in open society or society, what we can do against today's. If you have some tips or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So as a journalist, I would actually answer both questions by saying that making stories, raising awareness, naming them, and not necessarily naming them as Russian trolls, but just make a very detailed account on what they're doing and showing what they're doing, taking screen caps and giving background. For example, explaining background and giving context. So that I would definitely do. But then it's really difficult otherwise. I really don't have a solution because it doesn't help to report them because no one does anything, no one is interested. And yeah, but you mentioned NAFO, which is a community that is actively also trying to attack the trolls back or trying to at least get some attention to them. Such operations have actually been ongoing, for example, in Lithuania, where there were the Lithuanian elves, and I believe here in Czech too there have been similar elves already years and years ago. So these initiatives are excellent too. But yeah, I have seen recently a really interesting project by a Finnish researcher, Pekka Kalliomäki, on Twitter, who has every day exposed some real pro-Russian propagandists and making really good threads about them. So I really recommend information spreading. Then you also mentioned Finland's good education, and that we also have the problem. Yes, we so much do. We, for example, now have a government of whose members some are actively spreading disinformation, these far-right conspiracy theories about, for example, the exchange of population, and are always also spreading ideas that are really close to Russian trolls' messages, just like, for example, rape fantasies of some green or left female politicians and such. So education doesn't really do any magic, unfortunately.
Thank you. And because I was just signalized that the time is slowly up, I'm wondering if there is any last question or comment that somebody would like to pose. Because if not, then I would like to ask you, Jessikka, if there is something that you would like to pass on the Czech auditory, something like a last message for today. I hope this is not the very last one when you are here in the Czech Republic, that we can share maybe among others in the context of disinformation warfare. Is there some message that you would like to voice?
Yes, definitely. Thank you for providing the opportunity. I would say that it's time to act up and it's time to stand up and really promote and defend democracy that is under attack, and defend the freedoms, defend journalists and other activists, diplomats, even citizen activists, because everyone are being attacked at the moment who are just speaking the truth. So these liberties that we have didn't come for free, so it seems we have to continue the fight for them.
Thank you so much for these words. Thank you so much for being the guest of the Journalism Incubator, for joining us here. As one can tell, this is mostly a music festival, but the accompanying program is dedicated to courage. And so we believe, at least in the Journalism Incubator, that you represent the courage in your work. So thank you so much for that, and good luck with the new book and with all the future endeavors. We are with you, at least virtually, and we hope to welcome you back to Prague soon. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us at this debate. Enjoy the afternoon, enjoy music, and let's be ready to fight back the Russian trolls. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jessikka.
Thank you.